diplomacy to try to get that escalation to stop, for the situation to stabilize. We still believe, as I said, that that's the best way to get families back up to their kibbutzes in their lives and their home. That escalating a conflict with a group like Hezbollah, who is well resourced, well armed, and well supported by Iran, that is not the way to get those families back home safely in anything like the near term.
Well, obviously, Iran is at the heart of what's going on in the Middle East and all of these different tension points. Our next guest, who's going to join us, Governor Doug Burgum, is just back from Israel. He says this administration is to fault for Iran now being able to foment so many and fund so many of these things. Here's what he said.
Administration is, unfrozen like $16 billion in assets. Paid $6 billion for 5 hostages, which put a price on hostage taking, which I'm sure was part of what incentivized the record amount of hostages taken on October 7th. And then, President Trump had Iran on their knees financially, and now they've got the money to fund all of this.
Response to that critique?
Well, we've talked about this before, and the idea that we have turned a blind eye to Iran's activities is just false. It's not true.
But that's different than easing sanctions on them. That's different. Or waivers to sanctions.
Iran is one of the most heavily sanctioned countries in the world, and that's in part, actually large part, to what President Biden has done. 600 sanctions alone, just in this administration.
Then why did he release the money?
So I don't buy the argument that we somehow turned a blind eye and just given them cash. It's also not like the IRGC is taking, it was ever going to stop taking hostages or ever stop the destabilizing activities. It got so bad, Iran-backed militias supported by Iran attacking our troops in Iraq and Syria, that Secretary Pompeo and the Trump administration actually almost shut down our embassy in Baghdad. So this idea that it's somehow different or new now, I just don't buy it. And the numbers don't bear it out. We're absolutely holding Iran accountable and doing it on a range of fronts, not to mention an increase in military presence in the region, which has stayed at a heightened level in just the last few months.
Well, Admiral, we know there are a lot of intractable problems in the region. We appreciate your time.
Glad to be here. Yeah.
Okay, joining us now, Governor Doug Burgum of North Dakota. He's just landed back from that trip, as we announced earlier. So, Governor, what do you make of that? You heard the Admiral's explanation that they have been tough on Iran and that they haven't kind of let up on that pressure.
Well, I don't think the facts on the ground match the talking points here because, as you noted, October 8th last year, October 7th, we had these atrocities. When I was in Israel, we had a chance to walk in the footsteps, meet the families of people whose, parents and children had been kidnapped, executed, mutilated, burned in their homes. That all that we all know happened in a record level of hostage taking just on October 7th, about a month or so after we gave $6 billion to Iran for 5 hostages. I mean, we raised the incentive for hostage taking over a year ago. And then, as you said, the next day on October 8th, the rockets started coming from Hezbollah into Israel. And as you said, then we've got a whole 70,000 people that have had to leave their homes. There have been 8,500 rockets fired from Hezbollah since last year on October 8th into Israel. So people talk about this being an escalation. This is just the response. I mean, I think October 7th is like Israel's 9/11, but it would be like a 9/11 where then after you have the atrocities of that day, then people move into southern Manhattan and start slaughtering and burning innocent families, and then a terrorist group sets up in New Jersey and every day launches rockets into southern Manhattan. I mean, that's the equivalent of what the Israelis are going through. So we have a responsibility to stand in solidarity with Israel. But if you want to stop the escalation, we have to put maximum pressure on Iran. We're not doing that under this administration. President Trump did that. President Trump was proven that he was able to financially reduce Iran's ability to fund all these terrorists. They're the world's largest funder of terrorism, and one of the facts you have to look at is their oil exports. Their oil production and their oil exports are way up, and so Iran is funding this seven-front war. And then this current administration, the appeasement parade continues. There was just news out at the end of this week that we're going to announce next week about troop withdrawals from Iraq. Iraq fired missiles at Israel last night. The Houthis fired missiles were firing missiles at Ben Gurion Airport last Sunday. I mean, they're taking fire from 7 different groups right now, all funded by Iran.
But to the admiral's point, they have levied hundreds of new rounds of sanctions on Iran. We have beefed up the U.S. presence militarily in the region. Fair to give them any credit for those efforts?
Well, I think this is like saying that they these numbers, 600 sanctions. They had 500 sanctions on Russia, and Russia is funding a war in Ukraine based on their oil production. So the sanctions that they're putting on individuals, they get a big number that creates a talking point, but they're not working. They're not working because Hamas's budget has gone up triple. If the sanctions were working, their budget would be lower. Hezbollah, they fired 8,500 missiles in the last year. In the last month, that's more than 1 an hour coming in. But they've got they've stockpiled 130,000 missiles. And these missiles, Israel, they criticize Israel for responding to its attacks with the most precision we've ever seen in warfare ever. If it's a 1% civilian casualties of the number of terrorists taking out, they're complaining. Meanwhile, these missiles that are coming into Israel, these aren't precision-guided missiles. They're not anti-tank missiles. They're anti-house. They're indiscriminately launching missiles into communities. And where's the outrage about that? Again, as your one of your quotes, because Israel is good at knocking missiles out of the air, then somehow that doesn't make Hezbollah the bad guy. They're literally shooting into communities, schools, and homes daily, and now those have just ramped up. Last night, hundreds more.
Does the U.S., though, have a moral obligation to raise the concerns about tens of thousands of civilians in Gaza losing their lives who are not combatants in this war?
Well, there's never been a battle in American history, world history, the history of warfare that has been so thoughtful about trying to move civilians out of harm's way. I mean, think about Hamas and all these terrorist groups. We're in a different era. They get more international support when more civilians die. That's why their leaders wrap themselves sometimes even with their own families. That's why they've got built headquarters under schools and hospitals, because when you come to try to take out the bad guys, if they're civilian, it increases their international support. Hamas is supposed to be leading that in Gaza. They have a reverse incentive to actually protect civilians. They're better off in terms of their funding and international support from places like the UN. And the UN was also complicit because UNRWA is, been funneling money in there, and some of the Hamas headquarters were underneath UNRWA buildings. And so it's complete hypocrisy for the UN to be able to say that somehow Israel is at fault here.
It'll be very interesting to see the speeches next week at the General Assembly and what our president has to say about all of those issues. But let me talk to you about the man who wants to be president on your side of the ticket, because he is going to have to, if he's reelected, confront all of these issues. Financial resources are part of this puzzle. Latest FEC filings show that the Harris campaign has an enormous financial advantage based on what they've got, what they're spending, and what's still left in the bank. Time is also, though, a resource, and it's ticking down. Karl Rove writes this in the Wall Street Journal. He says Trump has been wasting precious time going after Harris on inconsequential matters. The Biden-Harris record on inflation, the border, and world events remains relatively unmentioned. He's letting her skate. The argument is that President Trump has good arguments against her on all of those issues. Do you talk to him about strategy? Is he willing to be more focused on the issues, or does he see a need for that?
Well, I think we all know that, and the voters know that President Trump, if we're talking about the economy was super strong under President Trump, and it's been awful under Biden and Harris. Interest rates, inflation, the cost of a home, price of food, price of gasoline. President Trump wins on those. On national security, all these issues we talked about, literally he's a deterrent. If you want to see the hostages come home, vote for Donald Trump, because we will see exactly like we did when Jimmy Carter left office on the first day. Ronald Reagan, the hostages came home. That will happen again because Iran knows that President Trump will be coming with sanctions and with things that will put them back where they were before when he was in office.
I got to stop you there because that's going to be a tough thing for families at home to hear. You got to believe that this administration is trying to get them home.
Well, I believe it, but I also believe that the appeasement parade that goes on from the Harris-Biden administration is what's escalating the war. Every time Hamas hears for an official or Harris or Biden to say, we need to go for a ceasefire, we can't escalate, they go, great, we can just hang on till November 5th. She might win. If she wins, we're going to get even a better deal. We might get, $1 billion a hostage. So the weakness and the closeness of the election is actually an incentive for Hamas and others to not cut deals. President Trump himself is a deterrent. President Trump will help end and de-escalate this. In the meantime, Israel is doing what they need to do to reduce the capability of an enemy that's on their border, that's attacking their citizens.
Before we go, because we got to go, I got to ask you quickly. The vice president says she wants another debate on October 23rd. President Trump doesn't sound like he's into it. What would you advise him? Should he do it?
Well, he's already done 2 debates.
Only one with her.
Yes, but I don't know if but we know his position. He's the most well understood candidate, the most authentic. He says what he thinks, and everybody understands it. She is the least known, least understood candidate ever running for history. What we need is for the press to actually, we don't need a debate. They don't have to wait for the next debate to ask her the questions about what would she do about all of these issues. But we just don't know. We can only assume it's going to carry on, which again, with President Trump, it was peace abroad and prosperity at home. And under the Biden-Harris administration, it's been the opposite. Our economy's in the tank and the world is exploding. And the last thing I need to say is Iran is closer than ever to getting a nuclear weapon under the appeasement we have. Every American should understand. Every American that cares about democracy and cares about Israel should be saying, we have to get President Trump. The leaders of the world need him back in. Strength is what will help de-escalate these tensions in the world.
Yeah, the assessments of Iran's nuclear program are very frightening. Governor, thank you for making the time. Always good to see you.
Thank you, Shannon. Great to be with you.
Right up next, the Congressional Task Force investigating 2 attempts on President Trump's life will hold its first hearing this week as we get an initial look at the Secret Service's internal report on how things broke down. A Republican and a Democrat from the task force join us for a bipartisan look at what went wrong and who is going to be held accountable. Next.
Fox News Sunday is brought to you by Pacific Life, creating financial security for nearly 160 years.
During its first year, a humpback calf and its mother are almost inseparable. She lifts her calf to its first breath of air and then protects it on their long journey. One of the most important things you can do is help the next generation. Protect the ones you love with Pacific Life's trusted financial solutions. Talk to a financial professional about life insurance and retirement income with Pacific Life.
American business never stops. All across the nation, folks are waking up and heading off to work. Businesses big and small are leading the way. Their addresses may be local, but they found a way to take their business global. Thanks to their partnership with the online marketplace Alibaba, American companies are now reaching Chinese customers. And the impact means big business for the economy. Last year, U.S. companies sold more than $66 billion worth of goods with Alibaba.